I have seen cadets smuggle illegal drugs, hack gravity, and challenge machines to duels, but nothing prepared me for the day a human rewrote Academy law with her bare hands. Look, I have seen a lot of stupid things in my 3 cycles at the Galactic Naval Academy. I have watched cadets try to smuggle fermented Antarian slime into the dormitories. I have witnessed someone attempt to hack the gravity controls during finals week, because apparently studying was too mainstream. I even saw a Klendathi cadet challenge a waste disposal unit to single combat after a particularly bad breakup, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened in Corridor 7 Delta on that otherwise unremarkable 4th day afternoon. My name is Orenth, by the way. 3rd-year flight navigation student, avian class, subspecies Talaxrian. Feathers, beak, the whole deal. We are the ones who look like we should be sitting on eggs instead of piloting starships, but here we are, defying expectations 1 navigation chart at a time. And before you ask, no, I cannot actually fly in station gravity. The universe has a sense of humor apparently, so there I was, minding my own business, heading back from advanced stellar cartography, which is just a fancy way of saying I spent 3 hours learning about space rocks that might kill us all. My talons were clicking against the polished metal floor, my datapad was tucked under one wing, and I was contemplating whether the commissary's mystery protein was worth the inevitable stomach pain. You know, normal cadet stuff. That is when I heard it. The sound that makes every decent being's blood run cold. The sound that means someone, somewhere, is having a really bad day. Thud. Thud. The meaty impact of flesh against metal, followed by a wet, gasping sound that belonged to someone who desperately needed help. I rounded the corner, and there it was. The tableau that would change everything. Pilnik, poor little Pilnik, was pressed against the wall like a biological wall decoration. Now Pilnik was, well, let us be honest here, he was not exactly what you would call imposing. He stood maybe 4 feet tall on a good day. His scales were this unfortunate shade of greenish-brown that made him look perpetually ill, and he had these huge, watery eyes that seemed designed specifically to trigger every protective instinct in the known universe. Prey species, through and through. Sweet kid, though. Always helped others with their xenobiology homework, never complained, just wanted to be a communications officer and talk to aliens all day. The irony of his current situation was not lost on me. Holding him there, one massive claw wrapped around Pilnik's throat, was Throgast. Oh, Throgast. Where do I even start with this piece of work? Picture, if you will, 6 feet of chitinous nightmare fuel, insectoid species Kracthian variant, built like someone had taken a mantis, a beetle, and a tank, then smashed them together and gave the result anger management issues. His exoskeleton gleamed under the corridor lights, all black and dark green, segmented armor that could probably deflect a plasma bolt. Compound eyes that reflected light in that special way that said, I enjoy causing pain and I am good at it. He was not alone. Naturally, bullies never are. They travel in packs, like scavengers, because deep down they know they are cowards. To Throgast's left stood Vex, a Silurian with too many teeth and not enough brain cells. Gelatinous species, semi-transparent, with those disturbing internal organs you could see pulsing away. He was doing that thing where he kept shifting his mass from one pseudopod to another, looking excited, probably hoping for blood. Vex always hoped for blood. On the right was Corum, stocky, four-armed, rocky skin that looked like someone had glued gravel to a humanoid frame. Lithoid species. Dumb as a box of space rocks but loyal to Throgast like a trained attack beast. The 3 of them, this delightful little collection of evolutionary mistakes, had Pilnik cornered in one of the Academy's less traveled corridors. You know the type. Minimal foot traffic, cameras that mysteriously malfunction, the perfect spot for conduct unbecoming of a galactic naval officer. This was not the first time Throgast and his merry band of sociopaths had done this. Everyone knew, the instructors knew, command knew, but proving it, that was the trick, was it not? No witnesses, no evidence, no problem. Pilnik was whimpering, this high-pitched sound that made my crest feathers stand on end. Throgast was saying something about territory, about knowing one's place, all the standard bully nonsense that sounds profound to exactly no one, with a functioning cortex. I should have intervened, a better person would have intervened. But I stood there, frozen, calculating the odds, running the scenarios, 3 against 1, and I would just become victim number 2. Self-preservation is not cowardice, I told myself. It is logic. That is when I heard the footsteps. Not clicking, not scuttling, not the slither thump of any species I immediately recognized. Just boots. Regular, rhythmic, purposeful boots hitting metal with the confidence of someone who owned the corridor and everyone in it. She walked around the corner like she was strolling through a park, not approaching a violent assault in progress. Human. Earthborn. I recognized the species immediately because, well, you kind of have to at the academy. They are the new kids, the recent additions to the galactic community, and they come with a reputation that precedes them like a warning klaxon. This one was female. I think humans have that whole binary thing going on, and I am still learning the tells. She stood maybe 5.5 feet tall, which put her at average height for her species, built lean but with visible muscle definition under her academy uniform. Dark hair pulled back in what I would later learn was called a ponytail, skin that bronze tone some humans get, and eyes that were currently scanning the situation with the kind of cold assessment I had only seen in combat veterans. Her name was Rena Kovac. I did not know that yet. All I knew was that she had stopped, looked at Throgast's hand around Pilnik's throat, looked at Vex and Korm blocking any escape route, and then, and this is the important part, she smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even a particularly happy smile. This was the smile of someone who had just found the exact excuse they had been looking for. Hey, she said, her voice carrying that flat, almost musical quality human speech has. You planning on letting him go, or do I need to make this interesting? Throgast's head swiveled toward her, compound eyes glittering with amusement. He had at least 80 pounds on her, minimum. His exoskeleton could shrug off blades. He had claws that could punch through hull plating, and here was this soft-skinned, recently spacefaring primitive issuing him what could only be interpreted as a challenge. Walk away, human, Throgast buzzed, his mandibles clicking with barely suppressed laughter. This does not concern your kind, unless you want to join your friend here in learning about proper hierarchy. Rena tilted her head, and I swear on every star in the Antares cluster, she looked bored. Hierarchy. Right. Is that what we are calling it when 3 evolutionary rejects gang up on someone half their size? Because on Earth, we have a different word for it, several words, actually, and most of them would get me written up. She started walking, not away, toward them, toward 3 beings who could, theoretically, tear her apart without breaking a sweat. No hesitation, no fear response, nothing, just this calm, purposeful stride that said she had made her decision, consequences be damned. Vex shifted nervously, his gelatinous mass rippling. Throgast, maybe we should— Shut up, Throgast snapped. Then to Rena, last warning, human. Rena stopped about 6 feet away, rolled her shoulders like she was loosening up for exercise, and cracked her knuckles. The sound echoed in the corridor, sharp and somehow threatening. No, she said simply. Last warning is yours. Let him go. Throgast laughed. He actually laughed. That was his first mistake. His second mistake was not letting Pilnik go. What happened next will be taught in xenopsychology classes for the next decade. I guarantee it. Probably under a section titled, Why You Should Never Underestimate Deathworlders, or possibly, How Earth Primates Will Absolutely Ruin Your Day. Throgast made the monumentally stupid decision to reach for Rena with his free claw, the one not currently choking the life out of Pilnik. He was fast. I will give him that. Krakthian reflexes are nothing to sneeze at. His claw shot out like a striking snake, aimed right for her shoulder, probably planning grab her and introduce her face to the nearest wall. Rena moved. Not away. Into it. She stepped inside his reach, which is apparently what humans do when any sane species would back up, and she did something with her hands that I could not quite follow. One moment, Throgast's claw was coming at her. The next, she had it redirected, twisted at an angle that made my own joints ache in sympathy, and Throgast was stumbling forward, off balance, his grip on Pilnik loosening. Pilnik dropped to the floor, gasping and scrambling away on all fours. Smart kid. Throgast recovered faster than I expected, spinning to face Rena with both claws up now, mandibles spread wide in a threat display that would have sent most species running for the nearest panic button. You just made the worst mistake of your short life, human. Yeah, big scary bug man, I am quaking. Rena said, her tone so dry it could have sucked the moisture out of a water planet. "You going to monologue or are we doing this?" Coram, brilliant strategist that he was, decided this was his moment to shine. All four arms came swinging in from Rena's right, rocky fists like asteroid strikes. She ducked under the first two, twisted away from the third, and the fourth, well, she caught it. This 130-pound human caught a lithoid's punch mid-swing, and I watched her whole body pivot, using his own momentum against him. Coram went sailing past her, crashed into Vex, and both of them went down in a tangle of limbs and protoplasm. "Did she just..." someone behind me whispered. A small crowd was forming now, cadets drawn by the commotion like moths to a plasma fire. "She just threw Coram," someone else confirmed, voice filled with awe and terror in equal measure. Throgast charged. No more playing around. No more posturing. He came at her with everything he had, claws slashing, mandibles snapping, his entire body a weapon honed by millions of years of predatory evolution. And Rena, this crazy Earthborn lunatic, she did not try to block. She slipped. That is the only word I have for it. She slipped between his attacks like water, like gravity, like she could see the future and had decided to simply not be where his strikes landed. Then she hit him. Not with her fists, though those came later. First she hit him with her elbow, driving it into the joint between his thorax and abdomen with surgical precision. Throgast made a sound I had never heard a Kraktian make before, high and strangled, and his exoskeleton, his supposedly impenetrable armor, cracked. Just a little, just enough. "Oh, that is a weak point," Rena said conversationally, as if she had just noticed an interesting cloud formation. "Good to know." Vex had extracted himself from underneath Coram and was flowing toward her now, shapeless and hard to predict. Solurians are nightmare fuel for exactly this reason. No bones, no predictable structure, just angry jelly with teeth. He engulfed her leg, his acidic surface starting to burn through her uniform pant leg. Rena looked down at him, looked back up at Throgast, who was recovering from the elbow strike, and sighed. "Really? The acid thing? That is your move." She reached down, and I will never understand the physics of this. She reached into Vex's gelatinous mass, found something, I do not know what, something vital, and she squeezed. Vex made a sound like a deflating air bladder and released her leg, pulling back and quivering. She touched my neural cluster," he burbled, voice shaking. "She should not be able to find it. Should not be able to." "Anatomy is anatomy," Rena said, shaking her leg out. Her pants were smoking slightly, but she seemed unbothered. "You have vulnerable bits. I have hands. Mathematics works itself out." The crowd was getting bigger. I could hear data pads recording, voices murmuring in a dozen languages. Someone was definitely going to get expelled for this. Probably everyone, possibly including the witnesses. Coram rushed her again, because learning from experience is apparently not a lithoid strong suit. This time Rena did not dodge. She planted her feet, and when his first punch came in, she hit it. Fist to fist, flesh and bone against living rock. The sound was catastrophic. I was absolutely certain I had just watched a human break every bone in her hand. Coram recoiled, cradling his fist, tiny cracks spider-webbing across his rocky knuckles. Rena flexed her fingers, winced slightly, and grinned. "Ow. Okay. Stupid. But worth it for the look on your face. What is she made of?" Someone in the crowd breathed. "Spite and calcium deficiency, apparently," I muttered back, because honestly, what else could explain this? Throgast had regrouped, and he was angry now. Not playful, not cruel, actually furious. He came at her again, and this time there was nothing fancy about it. Just raw aggression, powerful strikes meant to overwhelm through sheer force, and Rena met him beat for beat. She blocked with her forearms, struck with her fists, knees, elbows, even her forehead at one point, which cracked against his mandible and sent him reeling. She fought like someone who had learned in places where losing meant not getting back up, where rules were suggestions and survival was the only victory condition that mattered. The fight ended not with a dramatic knockout, but with the sharp, authoritative wail of security klaxons. Nothing kills a good brawl quite like the arrival of people with stun batons and the authority to throw everyone involved into detention until the heat death of the universe. Commander Yelix arrived with 6 security officers, all of them armed, all of them looking like they would rather be literally anywhere else. Yelix was Zentari, a species known for their rigid adherence to protocol and their complete lack of anything resembling a sense of humor. 8 feet tall, crystalline skin that refracted light in unsettling ways, and a voice that sounded like glaciers grinding together. She surveyed the scene with the enthusiasm of someone discovering a sewage leak in their personal quarters. "Explain," she said, the single word carrying enough weight to crush a small moon. Now, Thraugast, to his credit, recovered his composure quickly. His exoskeleton was cracked in 3 places, one of his claws was hanging at an odd angle, and he was leaking some kind of blue ichor that I was pretty sure was supposed to stay inside his body. But he straightened up, mandibles clicking in what passed for a Kraktian smile, and pointed one trembling claw at Rena. "Unprovoked assault, Commander," he buzzed, his voice strained but steady. "I was merely walking with my colleagues when this human attacked us without warning. I defended myself as was my right under station protocol. Oh, he was good. I had to give him that." The lie rolled off his mandibles smooth as silk, delivered with just the right mix of injured innocence and righteous indignation. Vex and Corm nodded enthusiastically, Vex's gelatinous mass rippling in agreement, Corm's rocky face arranged into something approximating concern. Commander Yelix's crystalline eyes turned to Rena, who was standing there with her arms crossed, uniform torn, one pant leg still smoking slightly from Vex's acid, knuckles bleeding, and an expression on her face that suggested she was calculating exactly how much trouble she was in and had decided it was worth it. "Cadet Kovac," Yelix said, her tone glacial even by her species standards. "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Rena looked at Thraugast, then at Vex and Corm, then back at the commander. When she spoke, her voice was calm, measured, and absolutely dripping with contempt that could strip paint off a bulkhead. "Yes, Commander. I have several things to say, actually. First, Thraugast's version of events is what we call on Earth a lie. A big one. The kind that requires either incredible stupidity or incredible arrogance to attempt. Given present company, I am leaning toward both." Thraugast's mandibles clicked angrily. "You dare." "I am not done talking," Rena interrupted, not even looking at him. "Second, when I arrived in Corridor 7 Delta approximately 8 minutes ago, Thraugast had Cadet Pilnik pinned against the wall by his throat. Vex and Cor were blocking his escape routes. This was not a casual encounter. This was premeditated assault. 3rd offense this month, if station records are accurate, which they should be unless someone has been deleting files." She paused, letting that sink in. I watched Commander Yelix's expression, or what passed for an expression on a crystalline face, shift slightly. "Interesting. Where is Cadet Pilnik now?" Yelix asked, her voice carefully neutral. Pilnik, bless his terrified little heart, poked his head out from behind a support beam, where he had been hiding. He looked like he wanted to dissolve into the floor and never exist again. "Here, Commander," he squeaked. She is telling the truth. They were, Thraugast was. I could not breathe, and His voice broke, and he started crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, just quiet tears streaming down his scaled face, the kind that comes from relief and terror, and the sudden realization that you almost died, and someone, a stranger, had risked everything to save you. Rena's expression softened for just a moment, a crack in the armor, before settling back into defiant neutrality. I intervened because no one else was going to. I used appropriate force to stop an assault in progress. If that violates station protocol, then your protocol is garbage, and someone should probably rewrite it. The corridor went dead silent. You do not talk to a commanding officer like that. You just do not. It is career suicide, social suicide, possibly actual suicide depending on the commander's mood. I watched several cadets in the crowd take involuntary steps backward, as if her insubordination might be contagious. Commander Yelix stared at Rena for what felt like an eternity. Then she turned to her security officers. Detain Thraugast, Vex, and Coram. Medical examination for Cadet Pilnik. Full corridor security footage review. And yes, Cadet Kovac. I am aware files have been deleted. We have backups. She turned back to Rena. You will come with me. We have much to discuss about appropriate use of force and proper channels for reporting violations. Looking forward to it, Rena said flatly, holding out her wrists as if expecting restraints. Yelix's crystalline face did something that might have been the Zentari equivalent of a smile. That will not be necessary. Walk with me, Cadet. And someone, get medical down here before Thraugast leaks out completely. The cleaning drones hate biological fluids. I should not have been in that interrogation room. Technically, I was there as a witness, having seen the tail end of the incident, but really I think Commander Yelix just wanted an audience for what was about to happen. The Centauri have this thing about teaching moments, about making sure lessons are learned by as many people as possible. Efficiency through education, or something equally bureaucratic. The room was standard issue. Metal walls, uncomfortable chairs designed by someone who hated the concept of spines, and a table that had seen better decades. Rena sat on one side, looking remarkably relaxed for someone who had just committed what could technically be classified as assault on 3 fellow cadets. Her knuckles were bandaged now, courtesy of a medical tech who had muttered something about human bone density being offensively excessive, while treating her. Commander Yelix sat across from her, datapad in hand, her crystalline fingers tapping out a rhythm that suggested she was either thinking very hard or trying not to laugh. I stood in the corner, trying to be invisible, which is difficult when you have bright plumage and a tendency to molt when nervous. Feathers everywhere. Very professional. Cadet Kovac, Yelix began, her voice formal. In your own words, explain your actions and the reasoning behind them. Rena leaned back in her chair, which creaked ominously under the shift in weight. Saw a kid getting choked out by someone twice his size. Intervened. Not complicated. But you understand there are proper channels. Yelix continued. Security protocols, reporting procedures, conflict resolution, mediation. You could have contacted station security, filed a formal complaint, allowed the system to address the situation. Rena's expression went flat. Right. The system. The same system that has let Throgast pull this garbage for how long exactly? 3 months? 6. How many cadets has he hospitalized while everyone was filling out the proper forms? She leaned forward, her tone sharpening. Commander, I mean no disrespect to you personally, but your system is broken. It protects bullies who know how to work the bureaucracy and leaves victims out to dry. Yelix's fingers stopped tapping. That is a serious accusation. It is a serious problem. Rena shot back. On Earth we learned something a long time ago. You cannot reason with bullies. You cannot committee them into being decent people. You cannot file paperwork that makes them suddenly develop empathy. The only language they understand is consequences, immediate and physical. You make it hurt more to be a bully than to be a decent person, and suddenly, remarkably, they find their inner morality. I shifted uncomfortably, my talons clicking against the floor. This was heresy, pure and simple. The entire galactic community was built on principles of diplomatic resolution, peaceful conflict management, measured responses through proper channels. What she was describing was, well, barbaric, primitive, very, very human. So, your solution, Yelix said slowly, is violence? My solution is proportional response, Rena corrected. Throgast was using violence. I met violence with violence. He stops. I stop. Simple transaction. Nobody died. The victim is safe. And 3 bullies just learned a valuable lesson about prey that bites back. But in a civilized society, Yelix started. Civilized, Rena interrupted, and she laughed. Actually laughed, sharp and bitter. Commander, let me tell you something about civilization. Real civilization is not about having fancy protocols and 17-step reporting procedures. Real civilization is measured by how you treat your most vulnerable members. A society that lets the strong prey on the weak because stopping it would be impolite or improper or against proper procedure. That is not civilized. That is just polite barbarism with better paperwork. The silence that followed was profound. I could hear my own heartbeat, triple-time avian rhythm, loud in my ears. This human, this Earthborn newcomer who had been in the galactic community for barely a fraction of a cycle, had just called thousands of years of carefully constructed social order polite barbarism. The worst part? She might have had a point. Commander Yelix set down her data pad. Her crystalline face was unreadable, but her voice when she spoke carried something I had never heard from her before. Uncertainty. Your file indicates you have prior military experience, Earth Armed Forces, Infantry Division. You have seen combat. Yes, ma'am. Did you enjoy what happened today? The fight? Rena met her eyes steadily. No, Commander. I did not. I do not enjoy hurting people, but I would do it again without hesitation, because that kid Pilnik, he deserves to walk these corridors without fear. Everyone does. And if your system cannot guarantee that, then someone has to. The fallout from what the cadet population immediately dubbed the Corridor 7 incident was, to put it mildly, spectacular. Within 48 hours, 3 major things happened that fundamentally altered life at the Galactic Naval Academy, and I had a front-row seat to all of it. First, Throgast, Vex and Korm were expelled. Not suspended, not reprimanded, not given a stern talking to and sent on their way. Expelled. Gone. Their families were notified, their belongings were packed, and they were escorted off-station by security with the kind of efficiency usually reserved for biological hazards. Turns out, when Commander Yelix went through those backup security files, she found enough evidence to charge them with 17 separate counts of assault, intimidation, and conduct unbecoming. 17. In 3 months. The system had not been broken, it had been systematically ignored, and now someone was actually paying attention. Second, and this is where it gets interesting, the Academy convened an emergency session to review its conflict resolution policies. I attended because, apparently, witness testimony was required, and I got to watch a room full of senior officers and department heads argue for 6 hours straight about whether or not Rena's actions constituted justified intervention or criminal assault. The vote was closer than it should have been, but ultimately they settled on justifiable defense of another cadet under imminent threat. She was issued a formal reprimand for not following proper reporting channels, which would stay on her record, and also in the same breath, a commendation for exemplary courage and protection of fellow cadets. Galactic bureaucracy at its finest, everyone. Punish and praise simultaneously, so nobody can complain about bias. But the third thing was what really mattered. New protocols. Mandatory bystander intervention training. Anonymous reporting systems with guaranteed follow-up within 6 hours. Security reviews of all assault claims from the past 2 years. And my personal favorite, a new policy stating that physical intervention to prevent immediate harm would be evaluated based on threat level and proportionality rather than automatically classified as assault. They called it the Kovac Protocol. Though Rena herself rolled her eyes so hard at that name I thought they might achieve escape velocity. They named a rule after me for breaking rules, she said when I ran into her in the commissary 3 days later. Earth logic would call that ironic. What does your species call it? Stupid, I replied, settling across from her with my tray of nutritional paste. We call it stupid, but effective stupid, so I suppose that counts for something. She was eating something that looked like it had died twice and been reanimated out of spite. Human food is, I have learned, an acquired taste that I have no intention of acquiring. How is Pilnik doing? She asked, poking at her meal with a fork. Better. He actually came to class yesterday, first time in 2 weeks. I tilted my head, a gesture of curiosity among my people. He asked about you, wanted to know how to thank you properly. Rena looked uncomfortable, which was fascinating. This was the same human who had stared down 3 opponents without blinking, and genuine gratitude made her squirm. He does not need to thank me. Anyone would have done the same. Except they did not, I pointed out. I did not. I stood there and calculated risks, and decided my safety was more important than his life. You did the opposite. That is not normal, Rena Kovac. That is exceptional, and also possibly insane, but mostly exceptional. She was quiet for a moment, pushing food around her plate. When she spoke, her voice was softer than I had heard it before. On Earth, we have this saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. I did not come halfway across the galaxy to do nothing while someone got hurt. That is not why I am here. Why are you here? I asked. Because I was curious, and also because she seemed like she might actually answer. She smiled, small and genuine. To see what is out here, to meet people, all kinds of people, and figure out where humans fit in this big, weird, wonderful universe. And maybe, if I am lucky, to make it a little bit better than I found it. A week later I saw Pilnik walking through Corridor 7 Delta, head held high, no fear in his eyes. 3 other cadets were with him, smaller species, the kind that usually kept to shadows and avoided attention. They were laughing about something, voices echoing off the metal walls, claiming space that had been denied to them through intimidation and violence. Rena was not with them. She did not need to be. Her presence was there anyway, in their confidence, in their willingness to exist without apology. I thought about what she had said, about making things better, about how humans approached problems, not with committees and protocols but with direct action and consequences. It was messy, it was uncomfortable, and it absolutely terrified the carefully structured order we had built over millennia. It also worked. That night, I started writing my Zin of Psychology thesis. The title, Deathworld Ethics and the Failure of Civilized Passivity, a Comparative Study. My advisor said it was too controversial. I told her that was exactly the point. Humans, I was learning, have this irritating habit of being right about things we wish they were wrong about. They look at our systems, our carefully balanced social structures, our 10,000 years of diplomatic evolution, and they say yes, but does it actually help people, or does it just make you feel better about not helping? Rena Kovacs punched 3 bullies and accidentally started a revolution in academy policy. She probably does not even realize it. She probably thinks she just did what anyone would do, what anyone should do. That, right there, is the most terrifying thing about humans. They genuinely believe that risking everything to help a stranger is just basic decency. They think courage is the default setting. They look at injustice and their first instinct is not to file a report, but to step between the victim and the threat. Consequences be damned. The galaxy was not ready for humans. I am not sure we ever will be. But maybe, just maybe, that is exactly what we needed. Also, someone please tell Human Command to stop sending us people who solve problems by punching them. My stress levels cannot take it and I am running out of thesis paper.